I found the first track on October 14, 2019, pressed deep into the moss beside Copper Creek, 16 inches long, 5 toes. The rain had stopped an hour before, and the print was already filling with water, edges still sharp. I knelt there in my ranger uniform, hand hovering over the impression, not quite touching it. 23 years in these mountains, and I'd never seen anything like it. My name is David Henshaw. I'm a senior ranger for the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest in southern Washington. That morning I was tracking a suspected smuggler, Miguel Ortega, wanted for transporting narcotics across the Canadian border through wilderness corridors. We'd found his abandoned truck near an old mining road, engine still warm. What I didn't know then was that Ortega wasn't running from us. He was running toward something, or someone. The track pointed northeast toward the abandoned Cascade Mine, a copper operation that closed in 1952, now just a tunnel mouth and rotting timbers swallowed by salal and sword fern. I radioed my position to dispatch, checked my GPS, and started walking. The forest was too quiet. No jays, no squirrels, just the sound of water dripping from cedar branches. Something was wrong. I'd been tracking Ortega for 3 days. He was good, stayed off trails, moved through creek beds, left minimal sign. But he was also desperate. We'd found candy wrappers, a dropped flashlight, cigarette butts still damp. A man on the run makes mistakes. The terrain here is classic Cascade temperate rainforest, Douglas fir and western hemlock rising 200 feet, understory so thick you can barely see 20 yards. Everything drips, everything rots. The ground is a sponge of moss and decomposing wood, and it holds tracks like wet clay. I followed Ortega's boot prints, size 10 Merrill hiking shoes, distinctive waffle tread, up a game trail. He was moving fast, taking risks, not bothering to conceal his path. That told me he was either panicked or injured, or both. Around noon, his tracks intersected with something else. The first anomaly was a broken vine maple, snapped clean at chest height. The break was fresh, white wood exposed, sap still tacky. Something large had pushed through here, moving perpendicular to Ortega's path. I measured the height of the break, 6 feet, 8 inches. 20 yards further I found the second track. This one was even clearer. The creature, I didn't have another word for it, had stepped onto a rotting log, and the soft wood had compressed under its weight. The footprint was massive. Deep heel impression, pronounced arch, splayed toes with what looked like dermal ridges. I took photographs from multiple angles, placed my boot beside it for scale. My size 12 foot looked like a child's. The tracks were heading in the same direction as Ortega's, northeast, toward the mine. I should have called it in immediately. Protocol dictated reporting any unusual wildlife sign, especially something this size. But I hesitated. What would I say? That I'd found tracks belonging to a creature that supposedly didn't exist. That my fugitive was apparently being followed by something out of a cryptozoology forum. Instead, I kept walking. The forest changed as I climbed toward the mine. The canopy thinned and sword fern gave way to bracken and salal. I could smell something metallic on the wind. Old iron, rust, the mineral tang of disturbed earth. The mine was close. That's when I found the blood. It was on the underside of a salal leaf, dark and viscous. I touched it with my fingertip. Still tacky, maybe 2 hours old. Not human blood. The color was wrong, more rust than crimson, and it had a thick, musky smell. I looked around and found more. Drops on stone, smears on bark, a spray pattern across moss that suggested a wound still bleeding. Whatever I was tracking was hurt. The boot prints continued alongside the blood trail. Ortega's stride had shortened. He was moving more carefully now, cautiously. Every 50 feet or so he'd stop, evidenced by prints facing different directions, as if he was listening, watching. I checked my radio. Signal was weak this deep in the valley, but I could still reach dispatch if needed. I unsnapped the retention strap on my service weapon, a Glock 22 I'd fired exactly 3 times in the field, all warning shots for aggressive black bears. The mine entrance appeared through the trees like a mouth, a 10-foot arch of weathered timbers, darkness beyond. The hillside slumped around it like sagging flesh. The tracks led straight inside, both sets. I stood at the threshold looking into that darkness and made a decision that would change everything. I didn't go inside immediately. Training and instinct both said, wait for backup, secure the perimeter, don't corner a fugitive in an enclosed space. But I also knew that by the time backup arrived, minimum 40 minutes down from the nearest station, Whatever was happening in that mine might be over. I called it in anyway. Dispatch, this is Ranger Henshaw, badge 447. I've located the mine entrance. Tracks indicate the subject entered approximately 2 hours ago. Be advised. I paused, choosing words carefully. There may be additional complications. Wildlife involvement. Request backup and proceed with caution. The dispatcher, Sarah Lim, responded immediately. Copy that 4A47. What kind of wildlife? Unknown. Large mammal. Potentially injured. Do you need fish and wildlife? Negative. Just send Rangers Mitchell and Chen. And tell them to bring trauma supplies. I clicked off before she could ask more questions. I stood at the entrance, letting my eyes adjust. The tunnel ran straight back for maybe 30 feet before curving left. Railroad tracks still visible under decades of sediment and decay. Timber supports every 6 feet, some buckled, others split. Water dripped somewhere inside, a steady, echoing plop that measured time. I turned on my flashlight. The first thing I saw was more blood. A handprint on the wall, human-sized, smeared. Ortega had braced himself here, checking behind. The blood trail continued deeper, drops now pooling in the depressions between railroad ties. I moved forward, weapon drawn, light sweeping side to side. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber about 50 feet in, probably an old ore sorting room. My light caught the glint of rusted metal, cable spools, broken tools, a collapsed wheelbarrow, and against the far wall, partially hidden behind a support beam, movement. Miguel Ortega, my voice bounced off stone. Federal Ranger, show me your hands. The movement stopped. I'm not here to hurt you, Miguel. I need you to show me your hands and step into the light. A voice came from the darkness, heavily accented, hoarse. Don't shoot, man. Please, I'm not armed. Then show yourself. He emerged slowly. Thin Hispanic male, late 30s, wearing mud-caked jeans and a torn jacket. His hands were raised, but they were covered in blood. Not his own, I realized. He wasn't injured. Where's the blood coming from, Miguel? He glanced behind him, then back at me. His face was a mask of exhaustion and something else. Fear, yes, but also determination. You're not going to believe me? Try me. There's something else in here. Something, I can't even explain it, man. It's hurt bad. Bleeding. I've been trying to help it. I kept my weapon trained on him. Step aside. Slowly. He moved laterally and my flashlight swept past him into the deeper recess of the chamber. That's when I saw it. The creature was massive, easily 7 feet tall, even sitting propped against the wall, covered in dark brown hair matted with blood and mud. Its left shoulder was torn open, a wound the size of my fist, flesh exposed. The face was, I still struggle to describe it, humanoid, but not human. Pronounced brow ridge, flat nose, eyes that caught my flashlight and reflected it back amber gold. Those eyes were conscious, aware, and filled with pain. The creature made a sound, low, rumbling, somewhere between a groan and a vocalization. Not threatening, suffering. Miguel spoke quietly beside me. It needs a doctor, man, or a vet. Something. I don't know what to do. Neither did I. I stood frozen, light trembling in my hand, every piece of training and rational thought colliding with what my eyes were reporting. The creature's chest rose and fell with labored breathing. Each exhale created a small cloud of condensation in the cold mine air. Blood dripped steadily from the shoulder wound onto the stone floor. It was real, biological, suffering. How long have you been here? I asked Miguel, not taking my eyes off the creature. Since yesterday morning. I was running, from you guys, and I heard this sound like crying almost. I found him collapsed outside the mine entrance. There was so much blood. I couldn't just leave him. You dragged it inside? He walked. I helped. Took us 2 hours. Miguel's voice cracked. I gave him water, tried to clean the wound, used my shirt to stop the bleeding, but he gestured helplessly at the soaked fabric wadded against the creature's shoulder. I finally lowered my weapon. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't a threat. Not right now. I approached slowly, hands visible, moving like I would with an injured bear, calm, non-threatening, ready to retreat. The creature watched me with those impossible eyes. Up close I could see details. Fingernails, not claws. Palms with clear dermal ridges. The wound itself looked like a deep laceration, possibly from barbed wire or a steel trap. The edges ragged and infected. It's okay, I heard myself saying. We're going to help you. The creature made another sound, softer this time, almost questioning. I keyed my radio. Dispatch Henshaw, delay that backup. I need you to connect me with Dr. Elizabeth Reeves at WSU Veterinary Sciences. Emergency priority. Static then. 447. Confirm your status. Are you injured? Negative, but I have a critical wildlife situation. Large mammal, severe laceration, possible infection. I need expert consultation immediately. Fish and Wildlife is en route. Belay that. No one else comes up here until I give the all clear. That's an order. Just get me Dr. Reeves. I could hear the confusion in Sarah's voice. Copy. Stand by. Miguel had moved closer, crouching beside the creature. I think he understands some things. When I talk to him, he watches my face and look. He gestured to a small pile of items arranged on a flat stone, water bottles, a protein bar wrapper, bandage packaging. He organized these. Neat. Like he was trying to figure out what they were for. I studied the arrangement. It was deliberate, curious. The behavior of something intelligent. 3 minutes later, my radio crackled. Henshaw, Dr. Reeves on the line. Elizabeth? It's David Henshaw. I need your expertise, and I need you to trust me without asking questions yet. David? What's going on? I have an unknown primate species, approximately 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, with a severe shoulder laceration. Wound is 6 hours old minimum, showing signs of infection. The animal is conscious, responsive, but in significant distress. What do I do? A long pause. David, what exactly are you looking at? Something that shouldn't exist, but it does, and it's dying if we don't help it. So please, just tell me what to do. Another pause. Then, professionally, don't approach if it shows signs of aggression. Keep it calm. Infection is your biggest threat. Do you have any first aid supplies? Full trauma kit in my pack. Good. Here's what you need to do. Dr. Reeves walked me through it step by step. Clean the wound with saline. I had irrigation bottles in my kit. Apply antibiotic ointment. Bandage with sterile gauze and pressure wraps. Administer pain relief if possible. I had nothing appropriate for an animal this size except aspirin, which she said to avoid. The infection worries me most, she said through the radio. If it's septic, it'll need IV antibiotics, professional care. That's not possible right now. David, what exactly are we talking about? I need to know what I'm treating. I looked at the creature, watching me with those amber eyes. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. But Elizabeth, this stays between us, for now. No one else can know. You're asking me to violate reporting protocols. I'm asking you to trust my judgment. The longest pause yet. Then, okay. But David, if this thing crashes, you need real help, promise me. I promise. I spent the next 40 minutes cleaning and dressing the wound. The creature, I couldn't keep thinking of it as it, remained remarkably still. When I touched the laceration, he flinched but didn't pull away. Miguel held one of his hands, speaking softly in Spanish. The hand dwarfed Miguel's, but the grip was gentle. He's scared, Miguel said. So am I. As I worked, I studied him. The musculature was extraordinary, power you could see beneath the hair, but also scars, old ones, healed injuries on the forearms, a long, pale line across the ribs. This was a being that had survived in these mountains for years, decades maybe. My radio crackled again, Sarah sounding tense. 4:47, Rangers Mitchell and Chen are 15 minutes out. They're asking for situation update. That's when I realized the magnitude of what I was facing. Not just a medical crisis, but a decision that would determine everything that came after. If I reported this honestly, what would happen? Federal agencies would arrive, Fish and Wildlife, maybe ATF given Ortega's presence. The creature would be documented, photographed, possibly tranquilized and transported. Scientists would study him. Media would explode. These mountains would be swarmed with researchers, cryptozoologists, tourists, hunters. This secret place would become a circus. But if I didn't report it, I'd be violating my oath, concealing evidence, obstructing justice technically, since Ortega had effectively taken custody of an undocumented species. Miguel watched me thinking, "You're deciding whether to tell them, aren't you? It's not that simple." "Yes, it is. You tell them and they'll turn this into a science project. They'll take him somewhere, study him. He'll never be free again." Miguel's eyes were fierce. "I've spent my whole life running from people who want to control things. Put them in cages. I'm not letting that happen to him. You're a fugitive, Miguel. You don't get to make this call. Then you make it. You're the one with the badge and the gun. What are you going to do?" I looked at the creature, this impossible survivor, This living mystery that had somehow remained hidden for who knows how many generations. The wound was clean now, bandaged. He was breathing easier. If the infection didn't spread, he might survive. My radio crackled. 447. Mitchell and Chen are at the mine entrance, requesting permission to enter. I had 30 seconds to decide. Stay where you are, I transmitted. Situation is under control. Subject in custody. Wildlife concern was a false alarm. Just black bear sign. We'll escort subject out shortly. Miguel exhaled. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to get him out of here. As I finished securing the bandage, something happened that changed everything. The creature reached out, slowly, carefully, and touched my badge. His finger, massive and calloused, traced the letters. Gifford Pinchot National Forest. Then he looked at me and made a sound. A soft huffing vocalization. 3 syllables, almost like a question. He's asking who you are, Miguel said quietly. You can understand him? Not the sounds. But yeah, I understand. The creature shifted, wincing with pain, and gestured toward the mine entrance. Then he made a pushing motion with his good hand. Away. Outward. He wanted to leave. To go back to the forest. Not yet, I said, keeping my voice calm. You're too weak. The infection... He interrupted with a sharper sound, more insistent. Then he did something that made my throat tighten. He brought his hand to his chest, patted it twice, then pointed deeper into the mine tunnel. The gesture was unmistakable. Others. There are more of you? I asked. He huffed again. Affirmative. Miguel stood up. That's why he was so desperate to get back here. This isn't random. He was trying to reach them. His family, maybe. His group. My mind raced through implications. If there were others deeper in these mountains, then this wasn't just one anomaly. This was a population, a community, and my next decisions would affect all of them. I thought about the old reports, the countless sightings dismissed as hoaxes or misidentifications, the Patterson-Gimlin film, the dermal ridge studies, the howls recorded in the Olympics, and the Cascades. What if all of it, or even some of it, was real? And what responsibility did that create? How long have you been hiding here? I asked, though I knew he couldn't answer in words. Decades? Centuries? He watched me with an expression I can only describe as weary understanding. He'd been running from us his whole life, staying quiet, staying hidden, and now he was trapped in a mine with 2 humans who held his fate in their hands. I sat down heavily on a railroad tie. Miguel, tell me exactly how you found him. I was up on the old forestry road moving fast, heard something crashing through brush, figured it was an elk or maybe one of you guys. Then I heard crying. That's the only word for it. Found him tangled in barbed wire at the old property line fence. One of those ancient ones, half buried in blackberry. He must have been running, didn't see it. He was running from something, or toward something. When I cut him loose, he tried to go northeast, but he was bleeding so bad he collapsed. I got him water and he just looked at me, like he was deciding whether to trust me. Miguel's voice dropped. I know what it's like to be hunted, man. To have nowhere safe to go. So I helped him get here. Outside I could hear Mitchell calling, Henshaw, you need any assistance? Negative, I shouted back, processing the scene. Give me 15 more minutes. The creature's breathing had steadied. The bandage was holding, but I knew the real wound wasn't physical. It was the exposure, the knowledge, the moment when the secret became known. Dr. Reeves came back on the radio. David, how's the patient? Stable. Elizabeth, I need to ask you something. If you discovered a species that had managed to remain hidden for thousands of years, what would be the ethical thing to do? A very long pause. Protect it, whatever the cost. Even if it meant breaking rules? Especially then. I looked at Miguel, then at the creature watching us both. I think I know what we need to do. The plan was simple. Get the creature stable enough to walk, escort him back into deep wilderness, and ensure he could rejoin his group. Then Miguel and I would hike out separately. Miguel would turn himself in and I would file a report stating I'd found him alone in the mine with minor injuries. But plans change. 447, we have a situation. Mitchell's voice on the radio, urgent. 3 civilians just arrived at the trailhead, documentary crew. They're claiming they're tracking the same individual you are, and they have permits for wildlife filming. My stomach dropped. Deny them access. This is an active law enforcement scene. They're not cooperating. One of them is Dr. Harold Finch from the University of Montana. Says he's been following primate migration patterns in this area for 2 years. He's got authorization from the Forest Service supervisor. Finch. I knew the name. primatologist published extensively on great ape cognition, recently started making claims about undocumented hominids in North America. Most of the scientific community dismissed him as a crank, but apparently he'd been right. Do not let them up this trail. Copy, but Henshaw, they're threatening to file complaints, and they're asking specifically about large primate tracks near Copper Creek. They'd found the same signs I had. They'd been following him too. Miguel was already moving, helping the creature to his feet. We need to go. Now. The creature stood unsteadily, favoring his injured side. He was weak but mobile. Miguel grabbed a branch from the tunnel floor to use as a support staff. There's a back way out of here, Miguel said. Old ventilation shaft about 100 yards deeper. Comes out on the ridge above Silver Creek. I scouted it yesterday. How do you know about that? I've been using these mountains for 3 years, man. I know every tunnel and game trail between here and Canada. We moved deeper into the mine, my flashlight cutting through darkness that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The creature's breathing echoed off stone. Behind us, I could hear voices at the mine entrance. Mitchell trying to maintain perimeter. Someone arguing loudly about scientific observation rights. The ventilation shaft was exactly where Miguel described, a vertical climb of about 20 feet through a narrow chimney. Miguel went first, then helped guide the creature. Despite his injury, he climbed with natural grace, finding handholds in the dark that I could barely see with my light. I emerged last into afternoon sunlight filtered through old-growth canopy. We were on a steep hillside thick with vine maple and devil's club. Perfect cover. This way, Miguel said, moving upslope. We traveled in silence for 30 minutes, climbing steadily. The creature grew stronger with each step, as if the forest itself was medicine. I noticed how naturally he moved. Weight distribution perfect for the terrain, each footfall nearly silent despite his size. Then he stopped. We'd reached a small clearing beside a creek. The creature raised his head, listening. Then he made a sound, a complex vocalization, rising and falling, that carried through the trees like wind. We waited, and from somewhere north, beyond a ridge we couldn't see, came an answer, similar in structure but different in tone. A response. The creature turned to us. He touched his chest again, then gestured north. He was saying goodbye. Miguel spoke first. Go. Find them. Be safe. I wanted to say something meaningful, something that would capture the enormity of this moment. Instead, I just said, stay hidden. He looked at me with those amber eyes one last time. Then he touched my badge again, gently, and huffed, a sound I interpreted as understanding, or perhaps agreement. He turned and walked into the forest, becoming shadow, becoming silence, becoming legend again. Miguel and I stood in that clearing for a full minute after he disappeared, listening to the forest settle back into its rhythms. A Stellar's jay called. Water moved over stone. The wind shifted through hemlock branches. We should split up here, Miguel said finally. You go back, handle your rangers and that documentary guy. I'll head north and then loop west toward the highway. You're still wanted, Miguel. Running won't change that. I know, but I need a few more days. There's something I have to do first. I studied him. This smuggler who'd risked everything to help a wounded creature that most people believed didn't exist. What happened to the drugs you were transporting? I buried them. Day before yesterday, when I heard him crying in that wire, wrapped them in plastic and buried them deep. I can show you where. Why? He smiled tiredly. Because some things matter more than money, man. Some things are worth protecting. I made a decision then that went against every regulation in my manual. You have 72 hours, 3 days. After that, I report your last known location and direction of travel. Why? Because you did the right thing when it mattered. And because... I paused, searching for words. Because if you're going to check on him, to make sure his group is okay, then someone should. I can't. Not without raising questions. Miguel nodded slowly. I'll make sure they're safe. All of them. Then I'll turn myself in. You have my word. We shook hands. Two men who'd stumbled into something bigger than our own stories, who'd been forced to choose between rules and conscience. What are you going to tell them? Miguel asked. The rangers. The scientist. The truth, mostly. That I tracked you to the mine, found you injured and disoriented, that you escaped during medical assessment, that the wildlife sign was from a black bear with an unusual gait, that I lost your trail in the creek drainage. They'll want to search. Let them. They won't find anything. Miguel started to walk away, then stopped. Hey, Ranger. Thank you for not being the kind of person who needs to prove everything exists. Some mysteries should stay mysterious. I watched him disappear into the undergrowth, moving with the ease of someone who knew these mountains intimately. Then I started back toward the mine, preparing my story, organizing my lies. By the time I reached Mitchell and Chen, I had my report ready. Dr. Finch was there too. Tall 50s, expensive hiking gear, the kind of academic arrogance that assumes expertise grants access to everything. Ranger Henshaw, he began immediately. I need to see those tracks. My research indicates there are no tracks, I interrupted. Black bear with an injured paw. Creates an unusual print pattern. The suspect fled during assessment, and I lost his trail in Silver Creek. I don't believe that. I have 2 years of data suggesting, Dr. Finch. I met his eyes. I've worked these mountains for 23 years. I know the difference between a bear and anything else. You're welcome to file for permits through proper channels, but right now, this is a law enforcement scene and you need to leave. He stared at me, searching for something. Confirmation, conspiracy, any crack in my story. I gave him nothing but professional courtesy and stone-faced certainty. Finally, he left, muttering about scientific suppression and closed-minded bureaucrats. Mitchell waited until the documentary crew was out of earshot. Boss, I saw those tracks by Copper Creek. That wasn't any bear. No, I agreed. It wasn't. You gonna tell me what it was? I thought about amber eyes, gentle hands, a secret kept for generations. No, I said. I'm not. I filed my report that evening, sitting in the ranger station with coffee going cold beside my keyboard. Subject escaped. Wildlife sign inconclusive. Case remains open. Every word technically true. Every omission deliberate. Dr. Reeves called 2 days later. Your patient? Recovered and released. David, I've been thinking about our conversation. About protected species and ethical responsibility. Yeah? If something like that existed, something intelligent, something that survived by staying hidden, wouldn't discovery be the worst thing that could happen to it? Yes, I said. It would. Then I'm glad we had a false alarm. Me too, Elizabeth, me too. 3 days later, I received a text from an unknown number. They're safe. All 4 of them. Deep territory, good water. I'm turning myself in today. Thank you for those 72 hours. I deleted the message. Miguel Ortega surrendered to authorities in Yakima that afternoon. He pled guilty to drug trafficking, served 18 months, and as far as I know, never mentioned what he'd found in those mountains. I attended his sentencing hearing. When he saw me in the courtroom, he just nodded once. An understanding between us that needed no words. Dr. Finch published a paper 6 months later claiming evidence of unknown primate species in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. It was peer-reviewed into oblivion. The scientific community remained skeptical. Life continued, but I go back to that drainage now, every few months. I never see anything. But sometimes, on very still mornings when the mist hangs low over Copper Creek, I find things. A stone cairn that wasn't there before, arranged with precision that speaks of intention. A branch woven through others to create a marker. Once, a single massive handprint pressed into mud beside my usual trail. Clear, deliberate, as if left specifically for me to find. Messages from the silence. I've learned to read the forest differently now, to understand that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, that some populations survive precisely because they've perfected the art of not being seen, and that the greatest act of conservation isn't always documentation and protection. Sometimes it's simply choosing not to look too closely. Last month, a young ranger asked me about the Ortega case, the one that got away for 3 days. She'd heard rumors, strange tracks, a scientist who claimed conspiracy. She wanted to know if I'd really seen what I reported. I told her the truth. I saw exactly what needed to be seen. Nothing more. She looked puzzled but didn't push. The wound has healed by now. I'm sure of it. Scar tissue forming over that laceration. Another mark added to a lifetime of survival. I wonder sometimes if he remembers that day. The human ranger who cleaned his wound and let him go. The smuggler who cut him free from barbed wire and helped him home. I wonder if he tells stories. There are trails I don't patrol anymore. Drainages I avoid. Not because I'm afraid, but because some places deserve to remain unseen. Some territories earn their privacy through the simple fact of their existence. The Cascade Mine is sealed now, officially condemned for safety reasons. I recommended it myself. No one questions these things when an old ranger says a tunnel is unstable. I'm retiring next year. 24 years in these mountains. I'll miss the solitude, the quiet mornings, the way light filters through old-growth canopy. But mostly, I'll miss knowing that out there, beyond the trails and the roads and the places where humans go, there are still secrets worth keeping, still shadows that deserve to remain shadows, still mysteries that prove themselves not by revelation, but by remaining beautifully, perfectly unknown.